Hello, thanks for the introduction there, dude. So yeah, Blackstar. I knew about the brand when I used to work in a store, and my history has been about 15 years working in music retail stores back in England, in Birmingham, a little town where Black Sabbath are from, if anyone knows that. But I was always kind of the guy that would be selling the rolling cubes, the spiders, the expensive Fenders, the drum kits, the PA systems and so on. And I had a really good relationship with a guy called Keith, who was working at Marshall at the time. And I remember Keith vividly telling me that he was leaving Marshall, which was a big shock. And he told me, something special was going to happen. And within around about 6 to 8 weeks, Keith came back into the store once he'd left the Marshall brand and explained to me that it wasn't only himself, but another 5 guys left within the space of 2 days, which obviously was a big, big deal. And I'm sure you can appreciate these guys had a pipe dream, really, to build a new amplifier that would offer guitar players something different. In a world of such iconic brands, from the likes of Marshall and Orange and Fender and so on, to come out with a new amplifier was a real big dream. And as soon as he bought this first amplifier in with one of the pedals that they had, it really was a new sound we felt, and it really kicked off the first trade show they ever did. They took a lot of distribution deals around the world, and it's been non-stop ever since. But it's taken Blackstar around about 7 years to build up such a range of models that it touches everything from the real high-end stuff to the really low-end stuff. So we hit every price point, hopefully. So if you're an amplifier company and you come out with something small, to go up to something more pro and expensive at the other end of the spectrum is a pretty difficult thing to do. So ultimately the guys decided in the initial stages to bring out a hand-wired boutique product by the name of the Artisan range of amps. There's a picture up there now, actually, just briefly, but we have one down here, which is an Artisan 15. And the Artisan range is really for the old school kind of player. A good friend of mine, a very close buddy of mine who plays in a band called the Stereophonics, if you've ever heard of those guys, he's been using Artisans for the last 6 or 7 years, and his description is, if you threw Pete Townsend and Brian May and Angus Young in a box and blended them together, that would be the tone. And what the guys were trying to do was build up the brand equity. So people would take Blackstar serious, and then slowly but surely come down through the price points and the ranges and the features. So the initial 2 things were the Artisan range, which consisted of things like a 15 watt, a 30 watt combo, a 30 watt head, 100 watt head with stacks and so on, cabinets. And it's still to this day around the world, it's tons of artists endorse the Artisan range. Mostly kind of indie rock guys. So for anyone that likes to put pedals in front of their amp. So really we were hoping that the guys were hoping that the Artisan would be the new go-to AC30 or go-to Fender Twin, if you like. Now, obviously they had to appeal to more than just the old school kind of Pete Townsend guy. They had to appeal to the modern sound as well, the modern rock sound, if you like. So at the same time, they brought out a range of valve pedals, and they were pretty much boost to high gain, distortion, and everything in between. Now, just to kind of give you a little bit of a history about the guys, when they were at Marshall, they had a lot of ideas for amplification to move forward, to innovate. And these guys were really passionate, and they're still very, very passionate to this day. And every now and then they'd have a really great idea that would simply just get looked at and then put in the drawer and locked away for a rainy day. And eventually, as head of R&D and technical director, they became frustrated, and after a fair few meetings in the local pub and talking about things they could offer, they basically started with the ethos of let's give guitarists more flavour. So they talked about things like guitarists would often talk about the Fender clean tones, They talked about things like the Marshall Crunch that everybody loved. The Vox, just early breakup of an AC30 was something that everybody loved. And just for another example, the high gain American Boogie. So they knew that often as guitar players we sacrifice. We buy an amplifier, we buy pedals to try and mix and match and make our tone, which is a cool thing. But the guys wanted to make it more simple with their amplifiers. So the Blackstar motto, which you'll see on all the marketing and all that stuff, is the sound in your head. And our managing director, Ian, who was one of the ex-Marshall guys, he was head of R&D. If he's ever asked the question, what is the sound in your head, he'll often just say, it's whatever the guitarist wants it to be or needs it to be. And hopefully at Blackstar we give that opportunity. So you'll notice that thought process or that pattern appear in every product. So if you work in a store, especially, I encourage you to actually sit down when you get a few spare minutes, a few spare moments, and just look at the product and try and replicate those 4 classic kind of go-to points that most people talk about. So here's a quick example of one of the earlier products. The initial story behind these pedals, if I can just show you. Oh, that's the mic, yeah. I thought it was Godzilla, man. Okay, I'll show you. Let's turn the mic down for a sec. So yeah. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see that pedal. A nice little valve in there. And that's what the pedals look like. They're kind of big, and of course we've got some new pedals to show you later. But that's where the initial design came in. Now, the beginning of this pedal, let me tell you a little story. And I think this is good for the store guys to know, to use. But when the guys were at Marshall, they have a really cool, very much like this, theatre live room. You may have seen it on the YouTube and stuff. And they invited everyone down to have a listen to a new sound. And they had a guitar guy there playing some huge chords. And they had a big Marshall stack, and everyone was really digging this sound. And they were like, this sounds awesome. The amp was on, leads were plugged in, leads were everywhere. And eventually, one of the head guys came down as well, and they were all listening, and everyone was really digging it. And all of a sudden, Ian, who's now at Blackstar, brought out from behind the amplifier a Quality Street sweet tin with an input and an output, with the technology in there going through the PA system. Everybody thought it was the amp. Of course, everyone starts slow clapping, and everyone's really digging the idea, and the one guy who was really high up, chuck it out. Don't want to know. And that was really what Marshall were about. You can't diverse. Marshall has to sound and look like a Marshall, which you have to respect. It's an iconic brand, but the guys, you can hopefully appreciate, they had all these ideas that kept getting shunned. So they made the breakaway to start Blackstar. So that's a really cool thing, isn't it? To plug just a pedal direct into maybe a mixer at home through some monitors, so you can have it pretty low, to turn up to an open mic night with just your guitar and the pedal. So my clean is through the PA, I can get different tones from the guitar. Nice and easy. No amplifier involved there. Pretty cool, eh? The HT range of pedals matched with the Artisan boutique clean was a match made in heaven. And that's what really set the bar for Blackstar.